Meet the most capable CR-V Honda has ever dreamed of. The all-new CR-V Trail Sport Hybrid. With all-terrain tires and available enhanced traction control, it's built for wherever the day takes you. Heated front seats and a heated steering wheel? Ideal for winter drives and crisp early starts. And with generous cargo space, it's ready for big gear and even bigger getaways. The CR-V Trail Sport Hybrid. Learn more at honda.com/CRV.
Get your mother-loving ears on because your big-time radio DJ's got news. PayPal lets you choose how you want to pay for all the stuff. With PayPal, I can pay in-store, pay online, or pay over time. What's that? You want this translated into song? I hope you're sitting down. You can pay your own way. You keep those ears on, you hear? Don't just pay, baby. PayPal.
Learn more at paypal.com.
Welcome to Farm Here Daily, a Field Forward podcast. I'm David Geiger, your host. I've been on Iowa TV and radio for the last decade, and I am excited to join you on this podcast, Farm Here Daily. Today on the program, we learn about crop and pasture conditions in southern Iowa with agronomist Logan McCrea. Then, as we head into the 4th of July holiday, I'm pulling from the archives an interesting conversation about the U.S. Meat Export Federation's work in Mexico. Please be sure to like and follow the podcast as well as our social media at Field Forward Pod. We would love to have you join our community, keeping folks informed about what is affecting our farmers. This is Farm Here Daily. And joining me on Farm Here Daily, we have Logan McCrea, ISU Extension Agronomist for Southern Iowa. Logan, good to have you back on the program. And what has been going on in Southern Iowa? I know I was just in the northern part of the state, and they were getting tons, almost too much rain up there. How's that been going down south?
Yep, so that has been pretty common across the state for the most part. A lot of Iowa has been seeing a lot of rainfall in the past, I'd say, 2 or 3 weeks. I know I talked to Angie, and you were probably at the Northern Research Farm Field Day, or
I was, yeah.
The meeting day, and they got about 4 inches in an hour, if I remember right. We haven't quite got that, that badly, because we've had a lot of rain, but maybe not quite that bad. I think since June 15th, we're probably more in the 3 to 6 inches range, and most of it's kind of spread itself out a little bit. There's been a couple pretty heavy soakers that have brought a lot of rain in a lot of short periods, but really, we can't complain too much. We were a little bit dry. Wapello and Davis County are up to about a whopping 6 or 7 inches total precipitation since April 1st. So at this point, they're kind of taking what they can get, and the rest is really just enjoying everything they've got. It's not often. We haven't had a wet spell like this in the summer in Iowa for a long time that I can remember in this area.
Right, we typically talk about June as Iowa's wettest month, and that sometimes isn't the case, but this year it kind of surprised us on the second half.
Absolutely, and it's really been pushing the crops along too. I mean, with all that moisture, we've been having plenty of heat, so corn has been absolutely pushing along the ears. Usually this thing's knee-high by the 4th of July. Well, now we've got cornfields that are tasseled out by the 4th of July and are waiting for fungicide or whatever they want. Soybeans have been pushing along too. A lot of those are kind of into their flowering stages, and they're going to be working on their reproductive stages for the rest of the summer. So things have been going along super, super fast with all the rain and heat that we've had.
I know from a market perspective, folks are really watching for that weather, so we'll definitely keep a note and tab on that. As far as the calls you're taking from farmers and the fields you're going to, what are the common questions? What seems to be going on in the field?
Yep, so like I kind of mentioned, a lot of them tassels are starting to come out, so a lot of farmers are kind of starting to think about their fungicide decisions and whether or not they think it works for them. And it's tough with the markets and the way they are nowadays, so that's always the big question of whether or not it's going to pay off. And the biggest thing is I think there's a lot of really good resources for farmers to use. So the Crop Protection Network is easily the first one that I always point them to. You got to have the right product for the right disease that you're after. So if you're after tar spot or gray leaf spot or something, they'll have all kinds of efficacy charts on which products are going to work good on those and which products might not work quite as good. So the good thing, though, is with the heat that we've had, I think that's going to be kind of batting at that tar spot a little bit and kind of keeping it from developing too far along right now. It doesn't really love the 90-degree days, so I think it's doing a pretty good job of keeping it at bay for now, but we'll see what the rest of the summer brings.
Right. July tends to be drier than usual for the rest of the year, and that could be a good point with hot and dry, making it so that disease isn't as successful.
Absolutely.
Logan, as you look around the fields, any sort of insect pressure you noting yet?
In the past week or so, Japanese beetles have really started to come out, and that's not unexpected. This is pretty common, and Japanese beetles really don't often result in any kind of economic threshold for where you have to come in and control them, but it is something to kind of be aware of. I think they're more of a pest in, yards and gardens than they are really in an ag field crop. They just don't end up doing enough damage, but something to look out is if they do get into your cornfields, sometimes around the tasseling pollination time, they'll clip some of them silks. And then obviously in soybeans, you're just kind of monitoring defoliation and how much leaf tissue that they're really eating. So, other than that, there hasn't been a ton. I know up in Ames, they've been seeing some corn rootworm beetles starting to come out, but there isn't anything super sound the alarms level yet, as far as I am aware.
Another note to make, since we are reaching the stage where the crops are pretty well off so far, it means weeds aren't as big of a deal anymore. So, can we just take a look at June and May? And from a weed perspective, how do you think this year fared?
I think it depended when you got your herbicide application done. Early on, we had the Easter Sunday rain, and I think a lot of stuff that got put on before then got that activating rainfall for the residual and got really everything it needed. So that rain kind of put us out for a while and out of the field, and then until the end of April, early May, there was a real, 10 to 14 day stretch, I feel like, where it was warmer, the wind wasn't blowing, but there was no rain. So there was a lot of field activities going on, a lot of herbicide applications going down, and they just didn't get that rainfall that they needed to activate. And I think a lot of those, early water hemp, whatever it was you were trying to spray, just kind of were able to get through there without having to really worry about any of that residual, just because it hadn't gotten incorporated in the soil with any rainfall yet. So that's kind of been the common theme so far. Outside of that, that's been really the biggest thing is people trying to play catch up with that and come back and make sure they're controlling those that kind of slip through the cracks. But it does take a bit of a perfect storm to control some of the weeds that we're dealing with nowadays, and sometimes we just don't get that perfect storm, and it's not really necessarily our fault. We can't really control the rainfall.
On a similar weed note, how are pastures doing? Are they facing some weed problems there? How are they faring after this rain?
Yep, so early on, pastures the past few years have had some droughtier conditions that they'd had to kind of work through, and I think that has really affected their stand in the past few years. So that's kind of opened the door for a lot of these pasture weeds to come out, and a lot of thistles to move in, wild parsnip, whatever it is, come in and kind of take some of these spots. And that's definitely been something that I've had my eye on and heard a lot this summer. Is that a lot of those weeds have been kind of slipping through in pastures, but usually about this time, I feel like we're getting into that summer slump for some of our cool season pasture grasses. But with all the moisture we have, I haven't really noticed that summer slump quite as bad. And I think that's going to help out with trying to kind of choke out a lot of those weeds if they want to try and poke through. So that is a bit of a positive, but it is something that a lot of guys are dealing with just with the way that the past couple summers have been.
Alfalfa, is that also facing some similar problems as some of the other crops in terms of disease pressure or insect pressure?
I would say so on the weed front, just with, the precipitation side. That can kind of reduce the stand a little bit. And obviously, if there's less stand, there's less to kind of choke the rest of those weeds out. But alfalfa regrowth on second cutting has been really, really good with all the moisture and the warmth that we've had. So I think it's doing a really, really good job of choking out any other flushes coming through. But it is kind of still going through that same thing with the pasture where early weeds were a bit of an issue.
Logan, one last note before we go. Iowa State University Extension is constantly doing field days, especially during the summer. Anything to note as we go over the next few weeks here?
Yep, absolutely. So next Tuesday, the McNay Research Farm, southwest of Sheraton, Iowa, will be having their hay day at McNay or field day. So our idea about that is kind of making it a bit of our own version of the Farm Progress Show, but for haying equipment. So we'll have some local dealerships will be bringing out some balers, mowers, tedders, rakes to kind of demo out in the field and let attendees be able to see those with their own eyes and then be able to ask whatever questions they have to those dealers. And then at lunch, we'll be having a discussion about weed management and forages. So, like we've just been talking about the weed management and pastures or alfalfa or whatever hay crop you have, we're going to be talking a bit about managing some of the weeds in there and common weeds that you might be dealing with. So, it should be a good day. Hopefully, the rain will kind of hold off for us and we can have some fun.
Logan McCrea, Iowa State University Extension agronomist for Southern Iowa. Thank you so much for joining us on Farm Here Daily.
Thanks for having me, David.
This is Farm Here Daily. We will have more conversations on the way, but let's take a look at the Thursday market close as the week ends, heading into the 3-day weekend for the 4th of July holiday.
At Strayer University, we help students like you go from, is it possible, to anything is possible by offering access to up to 10 no-cost gen ed courses, so you can reach your goals affordably and fast. Visit strayer.edu to learn more. No-cost gen eds provided by Strayer University affiliate Sophia. Eligibility rules apply. Connect with us for details. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
And ahead of the 4th of July holiday weekend, the Thursday market close saw some mixed trading going on, but up in corn, July 2 1/4 cents higher, 431.5. September rising 2 1/4 at 420.25. Soybeans in July 5 3/4 higher at 10.56 1/4, with August rising 2 cents at 10.55.5. Soybean meal in July $1.40 a ton in the green at $273.80. And wheat in July down 8 1/4 lower at 547 3/4. September falling 7 1/4 at 556 3/4. In the livestock market close for Thursday, August live cattle $1.60 a hundredweight higher at $214.05. October up $1.20 at $210.90. Feeder cattle in August 47 cents a hundredweight more at $309.50, with September rising half a dollar at $309.37. Lean hogs in July, $1.67 a hundredweight weaker at $107.97, with August falling $1.80 at $106.10 a hundredweight. That is the Thursday market close. This is Farm Here Daily.
This episode is brought to you by Dogfish Head Craft Brewery. The Grateful Dead and Dogfish Head have gotten the band back together with the release of Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale, a light-bodied pale ale brewed with sustainable Kernza grains, granola, and heaps of good karma for a refreshing brew that's music to your taste buds. Available nationwide. Visit dogfish.com to find Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale in your neck of the woods. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery is located in Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
And back here on Farm Here Daily, we're going to take a look at a story from the archives. Back in May, I had the chance to take a look at what's going on meat-wise in Mexico. And joining us on Farm Here Daily from their spring conference, the U.S. Meat Export Federation, I have the director of Mexico, Central America, and Dominican Republic, Gerardo Rodriguez. Gerardo, thank you so much for joining us today on the program, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing at the conference this year.
Hola. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here, and we're very excited to be in this conference and being able to talk and discuss about all the different update situation that we're doing with pork coming from the United States. Quite a bit of this product is coming from Iowa, so we're really excited to get the opportunity to talk and discuss about all the different trends and all the different opportunities that we're seeing in the market right now.
I think that's the perfect segue into a first question, and that is, how are we marketing pork specifically in Mexico? I know you work with Central America and the Dominican Republic as well, but our neighbor to the south and one of the largest ag export destinations that we have, what are some of the products and ways that you're marketing those products there?
Well, before I get to that point, David, I would like to give a little bit of context on this question because years ago, pork was perceived just as an ingredient to do further processed products, sausage, hams, and so on. I mean, the commodity business is there and it will continue being there, but we're trying to move a little bit aside just to the commodity. We don't want just to be a price-driven decision that this product is more valuable than that. So we're working on developing different products, different segments, different channels, different regions. How can we give more value to all the different cuts and variety meats? And that is precisely what we're doing. So we are very committed in doing something that we call the marketing 360. And we are trying to develop all different scoops and options for the consumer, make it easier, make it convenient, show them all the different benefits of buying U.S. pork for their families and for their business as well, when it's a strategy for business-to-business activities that we're doing as well. So we are working all the country, from all the way from Tijuana in the northern part of Baja California, all the way to Cancun, for example. So based on the region, based on the target that we're working on, it's a different tactics that we have in place.
What's a tactic that stands specifically out to you that you found really interesting?
Oh, wow. You're going to put me on the spot on this one.
That's what I try to do sometimes. Hopefully not in a bad way.
No. I would like to explain us so many of the different things. But let me tell you something. One of the things that we have seen, people are always looking for convenience, right? So convenience is, when we consider convenience, we can consider, for example, exploring new channels as the convenience stores, just to give you an example. We're working with companies that we are developing products that are being sold in the convenience stores. Because, a couple of years ago, we hardly can see any protein at the convenience stores. I mean, honestly, at the best case scenario, you can only see like a sandwich with just a tiny little slice of ham in the middle of two big pieces of bread. Nowadays, the consumer is looking for more protein at the convenience store. So that is precisely what we're doing. And we are developing not only one, not two, but at this moment, we have 3 different SKUs or 3 different products that are being sold in the convenience stores that basically last year, they were not able to be sold in this channel. So this is just as an example of one of the channels that we are working on, just on the concept of convenience. Now, developing on these other channels, we're working with the airline companies. And this is an interesting story because we just launched a product that is kind of an instant soup in a mix of gastronomies between the ramen. The ramen, there is more kind of an Asian dish. We put them pork jowl, and we make it chicharron. We call it chicharron. So this product that is a mix between a ramen and a chicharron made of pork jowl, we call chicha ramen. And this instant soup is being provided or being given in the airline companies flying domestic in Mexico. So, this is another example when we talk about convenience and how can we develop new channels. But here is another example. We are working also, domestic or Mexican wine is very trendy. So we're working with different wineries or different, these restaurants that are in the wineries, and we develop pork dishes that they do the pairing with the Mexican wines. So we are stepping up pork protein as being the center of the plate in a higher end type of restaurant. So it's convenience, yes. It's affordable, yes. It's variety in the way you can eat it, but at the same time, it has a lot of attributes, this product, that it can be very sexy and very high-ended as well when you do this kind of pairing.
I appreciate you bringing up that high-ended product because I was thinking as you were talking that I've really seen, and we know Mexican food in the United States. It's very common. You can find it in virtually every location across the U.S., regardless of how authentic it may be or may not be. But we understand that Mexican food is very tasty. But what I've really noticed over the last few years is, especially on our cooking shows and our TV shows, you'll have many people like presenting Mexican cuisine as more of a high-end, elegant dish. You have their fresh pressed tortillas, you have their moles, the delicious aspects of Mexican cuisine. And is that something you guys are working with to help promote our American beef and pork products in Mexico on that higher level?
Yes, definitely working in this, for example, in this pairing that we're doing with the Mexican wines is one of the strategies. Another one is tourism. Just to give you an example, the tourism has been growing year over year. This year, we closed 2024 with a growth in a basically 8%, in an 8% growth compared to the previous year. And we have over 45 million people of international tourism. And that means, just think about this, David. Every day we have 125,000 tourists every day coming to Mexico.
Wow.
To the different destinations, right? So we need to be aware about that, how demanding in the requirements that these international tourists they have regarding gastronomy. So we need to step it up on the type of quality, on the products and the offer that we provide them, right? This is without counting the domestic tourism. This is just international tourism. So working in places like Cancun, for example, working in places like Los Cabos, working in places like Puerto Vallarta, that we have plenty of international tourism. It make us very mandatory for us to stand up, the offer that we have for them, right? So that is precisely what we want. How can we make it a better option for the international tourism? And this is just the tourism. I mean, we will also have the retail sector, the meat boutiques. We have so many other channels. But just to give you an example about the growth that we have seen and the commitment that we have.
Gerardo, there have been some trade barrier issues going on. How has that affected the process of marketing and promoting U.S. meat exports?
At the end of the day, David, we just cannot forget we have been partners for so long. Yes, we might see some challenges in the long term, in the medium and in the long term, maybe some in the short term as well. But at the end of the day, we cannot forget that we have been partners for so long. Mm-hmm. Before the free trade agreements, we have been partners. So, I mean, there is a lot of dependency among Mexico and the United States. Let me give you an example here. The international flights getting out of the United States, 25% of the international flights, they are going to Mexico. 1 out of 4 flights, they go to Mexico. 1 out of 4. I mean, they have 184 countries and 1 out of 4, they go to Mexico. So that is we depend among each other. We just cannot be fighting in this war, trade war that nobody wins, right? So I know that Mexico at this moment, we haven't been affected yet with a certain percentage of tariff as other countries around the world. But that doesn't mean that Mexico is winning. We are just playing where we are able to play in this commercial partnership that we have, but nobody wins. In this, nobody wins. We are just trying to keep improving. And in the case of what we do here of promoting U.S. pork in Mexico, we will, and this will not stop promoting the product. And not only Mexico is very well known as a pork ham market. We are moving and expanding also the primal cuts. We are working a lot on the loin and a lot of variety meats, because maybe if there is any other country around the world that is not able to be buying pork variety meats at this moment because of the situation that we're dealing, Mexico always will raise a hand and say, hey, if there is any opportunity of having new products that we can offer to the consumers, let's develop some options. And just to give you an example here, on the pork variety meats, we are developing a strategy working for the cantinas and for the bars, How can we do tostadas? How can we do tacos? How can we do sandwiches using pork variety meats? And how can we make it convenient for them? How can we offer them these new options of, and listen, I'm going to give you an exclusive news here. Here is the thing. We want to make it something interesting for the consumers in this new sector, in this new channel. We're going to be developing dishes in the cone shape, so you can make it
The cone shape.
Yeah, in a cone shape. So everything like a wrap. Let's say you put like a wrap of using variety meats, or let's say like a pita bread, anything that it has to be in a cone shape, and we put it in the like a family style, right?
Right.
And then these all different kind of products, all different kind of variety meats, or it can be also some cuts. And then we are going to call it cone, right? This is a cone. So it's iconic dishes.
Iconic dishes. I love it.
So we're going to be doing a lot of different options for the consumer. So this kind of strategies is something, how can we reach more people? So trade issues always going to be something going on. But we need to focus on the strategies for the long term. We need to be proactive. And something very interesting, what is going to be our legacy for the next generation of buyers, right? That is something we're also working on. And we have also something in place, working with the restaurants in Mexico, something that we call Kids Delight. And we are changing the kids menu at the restaurants. And, there's always going to be nuggets, and there's going to be hot dogs and hamburgers. Yeah. But we want to move forward from that. We want to have a different offer for the kids. So we can make it a little bit, I don't know if I can say it's sophisticated, but just more educated in the different alternatives that we have them as an option to offer for them. Because those kids that in 10 years are going to be going to the retail stores, they are going to make the decision of buying the product. And this is not going to be only on price. It's going to be on the quality of the product.
Absolutely. Gerardo Rodriguez, the director for Mexico, Central America, and Dominican Republic for the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, Gerardo.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Again, from the archives, a conversation from the U.S. Meat Export Federation's May Conference. This is Farm Here Daily, a Field Forward podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Again, in order to continue to produce this type of local Iowa content, we would love to have you join our community. So please follow the podcast, share it with your friends, and check out our social media at Field Forward Pod. Additionally, you can find me on social media at Geiger Reports, as well as WHO TV Channel 13 every weekday in their morning and noon hour programs. Again, I'm your host, David Geiger, and I hope you all have a wonderful 4th of July holiday weekend. I'll see you on Monday, everybody.